So since I had a lot of interest in the TCR reviews and walkarounds that I did, I thought I might do one on my time trial rig, which of course is another Giant. This time it's a 2017 Giant Trinity. This is obviously a triathlon bike rather than a UCI-legal time trial bike, and we'll go through some of the differences in a moment, but this is the main bike. Like I said, I've had it since 2017, hence it's got the orange colorway that was the de facto colorway for that year, and actually suited the team that I was racing for at the time. Currently running it with an OnV front, which is actually a tubular. Nice fast wheel, but obviously as you can see it's pretty deep section, so tend to go with a slightly shallower rim on the windiest of days, but almost always actually run the disc rear, which in this case is a Parcours chrono disc clincher. It would have been nice to get the tubeless version of that, but that wasn't out at the time I bought it. So if we walk around to the front, we can talk about some of the differences between the triathlon bike and the UCI time trial bike. So first thing you'll notice is that massive reservoir at the front. That's basically a drinks holder. Normally a drinks tube will go through that hole, and I do still tend to use that on longer time trials. Anything actually 25 or over, I'll take a drink part way through, if only just to wet your mouth. There's a big debate as to whether the bike is more aero or less aero with the bottle in place. I think basically because it's 50-50, the chances are it's not really making a huge difference. I think probably slightly more aero with it in place. You'll also notice that the fork on the triathlon bike is a little deeper, I believe, than the UCI legal bike, and the bar itself is a slightly different shape as well. Again, it doesn't have to worry about being UCI legal. Now, that's not really a problem in the UK because most time trials are not run to UCI regulations, so you don't need to worry too much about exact position and bike shape. At national championship level you do, but I am not at national championship level. If we look at some of the things that I've done to this bike to change it, the first thing you'll probably notice is that this is the drag to zero cockpit setup. It's actually not the latest one. There's a newer, more funky version than this, but what I like about this one particularly are the angled razors on the bars. Normally you see the bars come out straight and then you have to have quite an aggressive bend in them. These only have about a 15% bend because there's also about a 12 or 15% incline on the risers there, so it means I can get into a more suitable position for me. It's not quite praying mantis, but it's not far off. I'd like at some point to change these Dura-Race shifters to the newer blip type that Shimano now uses, just because I think that will suit my hand position better. I have noticed, I have experienced a few times hitting those shifters by mistake when you hit a rut in the road or a pothole that you hadn't seen because you were sort of riding slightly too head down. Anyway, that's all to come. I might try and upgrade to the new drag to zero cockpit this year if I can. It helps actually get rid of this area here, the space between your lower arm and the bar, which obviously creates turbulence. On this bike, as with all my bikes, I have a Garmin mount from Racewear Direct. Really nice, simple mount. It's been designed specifically for the drag to zero bars. Martin does a lot of work with the drag to zero guys, so that was obvious. Then you'll see the pads and the armrests. The armrests are a lot more sculpted than the standard Giant items. I've actually experienced when I was back on the original Giant cockpit being basically thrown out of the arm pads on really bumpy roads. These ones I've never actually been sort of thrown out of, so they're a lot more comfortable, and because they've got a high side here, you can really sink down into them and kind of almost push your elbows out into that area here, which does create a more stable platform, enables you to really sort of just focus on getting the power down. If we move over to the other side of the bike, obviously again triathlon bike, so you got a nutrition box on top. Mostly I keep that taped shut, just to minimize the drag that's caused by any of this rubber flapping around, and I pretty much just store my car key in there when I'm out on a time trial. The big change is this, which is the, again, drag to zero chainring. So this is a 56. Obviously, normally you're only getting a 50 or a 52 at most on an old Tegra group set. So the 56 is a big change. And of course, you probably know this already, but the main reason you run a big chainring on the front is not so that you can run a massively small cog on the back. It's so that you can actually spend more time in the middle of the cassette, which gives you a straighter chain line, and also means therefore of course that you're minimizing any friction in the drivetrain. It can be worth 2, 3, 4 watts, which makes a bit of a difference. You'll notice on my bike I've still kept the front mech. It is possible to shift between the original inner ring that is still in there somewhere and that 56. You definitely cannot do it under load, but if you just soft pedal for a second, you can do it. I've never done it during a race, but there's a few courses where it's quite nice to be able to shift down into that small ring at the end of the race just to limp home. And of course on training rides it's great. I've got a 28 cassette on the back. I actually normally only run a 25, but if there's a hill on the course, then the 28 just gives me a better range. Anyway, there you go. So it's a 2017, that's a small, the obligatory rear light. As you probably know, time trials in the UK now, you've got to have a rear light. If you haven't got it in place, you can't race. So that's about as aero a rear light as I've found, but if there are any better ones, I'd love to know. And the Trinity's now come with the Adamo saddle as a standard, which I've always gotten on pretty well with. So there you go, that's my Trinity. I hope you've enjoyed the walk around. I'll happily answer any questions on it.